Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be my July and August wrap-up. I read a total of 6 books in July and August. I especially did not have a good July. Reading-wise, I could not focus, I struggled to read, and I don't know, I just did not have a good time reading-wise. August kind of picked up a little bit for me. I read 4 books. I would have read 6 if I had the time. I was in the middle of my TBR jar pick, which I ended up DNFing. I'll talk about that. And then there was almost another book that I had started it, but then I just got busy and I was like, you know what, I'll save that for September. I mean, I still read 4 books in August, which I'm happy about. I also did have 2 DNFs as well. I had one in July and one in August, which I will talk about at the end. But I guess we'll jump straight in because I don't have a lot of books to talk about. So I'm going to start with my July reads first. So the first book I finished was A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. On her way to a retreat with her book club, Elsie's car breaks down in a cute small town that feels very familiar. She realizes she's in Olorton, the town from her favorite book series, but how can that be real? It feels like it's exactly from the book until she meets Anders, whom she can't remember from the book, but still feels very familiar. In my opinion, it is very hard to explain Ashley Poston books because they are so unique and special, and I just feel like explaining anything more would possibly spoil the book. Like I said, I gave this book 4 stars. I sadly did not love it as much as The Dead Romantics and The 7-Year Slip. Those were both 5-star reads, life-changing reads for me. This one I liked. I enjoyed the concept. I enjoyed the writing. I did enjoy our heroine, Elsie. And I did like Anders, but I just felt like the romance was kind of lacking for me. I wasn't super into the romance aspect. I think what I love so much about The Dead Romantics and The 7-Year Slip is obviously the conversation about grief and death and losing a loved one. And there is a little bit of that in here, but it's not like the main focus. I'm pretty sure it happens like early on in the beginning, but Elsie's favorite author has passed away without finishing the series. So that's kind of the main grief element, and it just didn't feel as personal as like Elsie actually losing like a loved one close to her. Like, I understand she did feel some grief because, you know, like her favorite author died and she's never going to read a new book from her ever again. So like, I totally understand that. In a way, I also felt like this book dealt more with like the overall town and like everybody else, like all the supporting characters. I felt like this was their story instead of Elsie's. I did really like how Ashley Poston created this like fictional town and all these fictional characters and just like gave them all backstories, and like you did really feel like you knew these characters and this like whole little fictional town that she set up. Like, that I loved, and I could really feel like the town was alive. But in a way, it just felt like Elsie was living through all of these fictional characters, and I just didn't feel the connection with her and Anders. I didn't feel the chemistry between them. Like, there were obviously parts of this book I did like because I did kind of start annotating it, and then towards like the middle I was like, I'm not really loving this that much and I don't feel the need to annotate it. And who knows, I may end up rereading this at some point and loving it more, and maybe I just had way too high expectations because I loved Ashley Poston's other 2 books. I will say I loved the little Benji and Florence cameos. Oh my god, Benji, I mean, he has like a very, very small cameo in here, but oh my god, I loved that. Like, I don't want to spoil things, but I love Benji and Florence so much. And then I think there was also a Island mention in here with his cookbook and his lemon pie. So that was cute as well. I love how Ashley Poston always manages to have her characters from her other books kind of like appear in her newest book or like have little mentions. I love that. It is so fun. I feel like if I reread this, I probably could love it more, but sadly I just didn't love it as much as her other books. But I am excited for her next one. I am hopeful that I will find another 5-star read from Ashley in the future. Then I read Dust Storm by Maggie Gates. This I gave 4 out of 5 stars. After a scandal with her client, publicist Cassandra is sent to the Griffiths Ranch for a business project as a punishment. The cabin she is meant to stay in is not ready for her, so she ends up staying with Christian Griffith and his daughters. This was really fun. I really liked Christian and his daughters. I loved their little family. I thought they were very cute. I initially did not like Cassandra. I found that she was kind of a bitch, but it is like black cat, golden retriever kind of vibes. But eventually I grew to love her. I think like as the book went on, you got to see more layers to Cassandra, and you really got to see like the small bits of kindness and just like the way that she showed people that she cared about them. And I eventually did grow to love her. And I loved how she was kind of mean to Christian's kids, but they loved her anyways. Like they soaked it up. They soaked up any little attention that they got from her. And I loved how she just became like this kind of stepmom figure in a way, kind of without meaning to. And she really just gave the girls a lot of confidence and stuff, which I really loved. I loved how there was no third act breakup in this book. I loved the ranch vibes. I loved how Cass learned how to ride a horse for the first time. That was fun. This was a slow burn romance, and I really liked that aspect. I wasn't super into the romance, but I think all the other elements of the story with the romance, it just worked for me. And it was just like a very cute, fun cowboy ranch romance. So those are the 2 books I read in July. Now on to my August reads. So the first one I read was Runaway Love by Melanie Harlow. This I gave 3 out of 5 stars. Austin is a single dad who is looking for a nanny for the summer. Veronica, a runaway bride, shows up on Austin's doorstep desperate for a job but has no experience. Veronica charms the whole town in minutes, including his kids. But will she last the summer? Will they keep their hands to themselves? This was really fun, really entertaining. It was fast-paced, but overall I just didn't really connect to the characters or the romance. Like I wasn't really into the romance. Nothing kind of stood out for me. I think if you just want something quick and easy and like to the point, you know, not a lot of slow burn build up. Like there was build up and tension, but it wasn't like it took, you know, over 100 pages. Like they dealt with it in like 30 to 50 pages, you know? I did like the Buckley family, like Austin's family. I really liked all of them. And I liked how Veronica just seamlessly blended into their family. I also liked Austin's kids. They added a nice comic relief to this book. Overall, it was just like a nice, easy, simple read. Then I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, which I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. Strangers Eli and Rue meet up to have a one-night stand. However, plans end up falling through. The next day, Rue's job is threatened by a new company coming in and taking charge, and Eli is a part of that company. A shock at seeing each other, Rue wants nothing to do with Eli, but they can't seem to escape each other. I did not know how I was going to feel about this because Ali Hazelwood's books are usually kind of misses for me. Like, they're usually a 3-star for me. This is the 4th book that I've read by her, and I think so far my favorite is Bride, and probably this one. I actually really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people have very different opinions about this book because it isn't like a cute little rom-com like her other books, where those ones are obviously more slow burn and angsty, but this one is like straight to the point. They start hooking up like really early on, and it is a lot more smutty than her other books, but I honestly enjoyed that. I think it worked really well for me in this book. The first 150 pages were a little slow for me. Like it was kind of hard for me to get into it, but around page 200, I really couldn't stop reading. I think like once they finally hooked up, I was like, okay, I'm in this. Like I cannot wait to finish this. There's kind of like a slight mystery element in here, like very slight. I really enjoyed that. Like it made me want to keep reading. It made me want to know what the company that Eli is with, like what they were hiding and what they wanted. Like I was so into that. I just liked how that kind of played out throughout the whole book and how the secrets got exposed and stuff. I liked that. I really liked the development between Rue and Eli. I liked how they had these moments of honesty, like pure honesty, and things that they have never told anybody else. I loved how Eli was down bad the minute they met. Like that night that they first met, he was down bad. Like he would do anything for her. He just wanted her, and he would do anything for her. Overall, I really liked it. I enjoyed the sex scenes. I just like enjoyed the story overall. I do think it was slightly forgettable for me, and I think this is finally my last Ali Hazelwood book. I think I'm done giving her chances. Unless she continues to write paranormal romance, then I might check that one out because I really enjoyed Bride. But yeah, I think I'm done with her like STEM, science-y type of romances. I just don't connect with them. So yeah, I enjoyed this one though. It was all right. Then I filmed a reading vlog and I read 3 cowboy romances. So I will link that vlog down below. I'm going to quickly go through these because I feel like I really gave all of my thoughts in that vlog. But the first book I read was Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This I gave 3 stars. This follows Vaughn, who is now kind of taking over his family's ranch. His grandfather passed away, and after he passed away, there was a huge scandal attached to his grandfather and the ranch and like overall the family name. And so Vaughn is kind of dealing with that aftermath and accepting all of that. And he ends up hiring Billy to train his stubborn racehorse. They have a lot of banter, a lot of back and forth. They kind of butt heads a little bit, but they end up spending a lot of time together, and obviously feelings develop and stuff. I enjoyed this. I liked Billy and I liked her storyline overall, her training Dee Dee, the horse. I loved that. I felt super emotional while reading that. I think Billy's connection with Dee Dee was just beautiful, and I loved that more in this book than the romance. Like, I didn't really care about the romance that much. Like, it was a great romance, but I didn't feel super connected to both of the characters in a romantic way. At times, this book just felt a little too predictable for me, but I enjoyed the plot and I enjoyed Billy, and I enjoyed this first book enough to continue the series. Then I read Holding the Reins by Paisley Hope. This is the first book in the Silver Pines series, and this I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This follows Cece, who decides to move back to her hometown and kind of have like a fresh start. And she ends up getting a job with Nash, who is a newly retired hockey star, and he also works on her family's ranch, and he owns like a bar as well, and he like works at the rink. Like, he has a lot of different jobs, and they've known each other for years, like since they were kids. And Cece is now going to be working for him in like the business setting for the rink, and they are super attracted to each other. They kind of decide to have like a secret friends with benefits type of thing. I personally did not enjoy this. It was definitely more of a small town romance than a cowboy romance. I didn't really connect to Nash or Cece. I didn't really like them, and I didn't really care about their romance, to be honest. I found the book to be a little boring. I kind of skimmed towards the end, like a little bit. I liked the family slash found family in here, and I did like the small town aspect. I also felt like the story kind of dragged, and I kind of cared more about all the other characters, and I wanted to know what was going on with them rather than Nash and Cece. I did like how generous Nash was. Like, he did do a lot for the community and the town, and he worked really hard, but, you know, I just didn't love the characters or the romance or the story in general. I don't know. I just thought it would be a really good cowboy romance, and I felt like there wasn't really any cowboy elements in here aside from like maybe 2 or 3 things, and that was kind of it. And then I read Kit McBride Gets a Wife by Amy Bari, and this I gave 4 out of 5 stars. The 4 McBride brothers have their world turned upside down when their precocious younger sister secretly places an advertisement for a mail order bride. So essentially, Junebug writes a letter in the paper for her brother Kit to get a wife. This is a historical romance. It takes place in 1888, I want to say. 1886 in Montana. And this was so fun. I really loved this. I loved the characters. I loved the romance. I thought the author did such a great job with the setting and the overall vibe. And it did really feel like a Western, and that it took place in the 1800s. I could really picture how the author was describing this like rural land, and like how things were like slowly developing, and how there was just like nothing, you know, you had to travel by train or by horses. Junebug, the sister, I thought she was hilarious. She was really funny, and I loved how she just added a comedic relief to every scene that she was in. I really liked Kit and Maddie. I thought they were so cute and so precious together. And I loved like the first time that Kit met Maddie, and how he was just like kind of like speechless, and he had all these descriptions of how beautiful she was and how like he was so interested in her. I loved how caring Kit was for Maddie. Like he immediately wanted to take care of her. I will say, I feel like this is falsely marketed as a romance novel. It doesn't have a strong romance plot. I feel like I should have said that in my reading cowboy romances video, because I feel like the main point of this book like isn't really the romance. Like there is a romance plot, but that one feels more like the subplot of this book. The main plot just feels like about this family that lives together and they're just trying to like live their lives, you know? There is also no sex scene in this book. There's not even like a fade to black scene. There is no insinuation that there is a sex scene at all. The characters just kind of kiss and like cuddle, and that's kind of it. But personally, I feel like that really worked for this book. It made sense for this book not to have a sex scene. Like it worked. Overall, I just really liked it. It was super fun and kind of romantic, and I'm excited to read the second book. Now on to the 2 DNFs. So the first one was Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi. This was my TBR jar pick for July, and I DNF'd this on page 107. I honestly wasn't really into the story. I also kind of felt that Penny was really mean, especially mean to her mom. Like I really hated that. And I get it, she's still kind of like sort of a teenager transitioning into a young adult, but I didn't like that. I'm sure her development throughout the book would probably be better, but I honestly just didn't really care about the characters, and I was already like 100 pages in and I was like, I'm not really vibing with the characters. Like we're finally getting into the plot, but I'm not super into it, and I just could feel that it was going to be like a 2 or a 3 star. And at that point, I just didn't really want to waste my time. So I thought, you know what, we'll just DNF it at 100 pages and call it good. So yeah, sadly did not read this. And then I also DNF'd 11 The Time of Serial Killers by Alicia Thompson. This I stopped at page 180. I genuinely was going to give this book like 1 or 2 stars. I was not vibing with the characters or the romance or the plot. Like I just didn't like anything about this. I thought I would somewhat enjoy it. Obviously, that's why I bought it, but I felt like the execution just really wasn't there for me. I thought that this was going to be a little bit more of a lighthearted kind of rom-com, and it is a lot heavier than that. It basically follows Phoebe, who's moving into her late father's house to clean it and get it ready to sell, and she is obsessed with true crime. She's currently writing her dissertation on true crime related stuff. She ends up meeting one of her new neighbors, and she automatically thinks that he is a serial killer based on like things. She like kind of watches him. Yeah, it's just like weird. It's kind of a little heavy because it deals with death. Obviously, like true crime in general deals with death, but you also have Phoebe who's like lost her father, and she's kind of dealing with that and the grief and like her childhood. And I don't know, I also just felt like the romance wasn't or isn't like a main focus in this book, and I just found myself like really bored and not caring about anything relating to this book. So I was like, you know what, it's gonna be a 1 or 2 stars, so I might as well just stop reading it now because I'm just wasting my time. So yeah, unfortunately, I did DNF this as well, which sucks because I love the cover. So those are all the books that I read in July and August. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about and what you think about them, or let me know what books you have recently read. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.